Hi everyone, I know it's been a hot minute since I've posted, but today, right in time for spooky season, we are going to be attempting to build the Jonathan Corwin house, located in Salem, Massachusetts. You might be wondering why I chose this house. The Jonathan Corwin house, also known as the Salem Witch House, is currently the only remaining structure in the town of Salem, Massachusetts that has direct ties to the Salem witch trials of 1692. Jonathan Corwin was actually one of the judges who oversaw the trials. The house was built sometime between 1620 and 1642. Little kind of vague dates. The Corwin family lore claims that the house was built in 1642, but scholars of kind of like 17th century architecture look at different architectural details to suggest that the home was probably actually built somewhere between 1620 and 1630. Though, like I said, there's no exact date just due to lack of documentation. Regardless of its exact date, though, this home is kind of remains as a excellent example of 17th century New England architecture, and kind of still remains as a really big, important milestone, kind of like historical spot, specifically for the town of Salem and the witch trials. We're not going to go too much into the witch trials here, but we are going to discuss them a little and kind of how they pertain to this house specifically. So, as you see here, as we're building, some things about Corwin and and about the trials to know is it's really unclear, just due to limited documentation, what Corwin's exact beliefs in witchcraft and magic were. We do know that he signed several arrest warrants for some of the accused witches, but that doesn't really kind of speak to like if he actually really believed in it or not. We also know that he took over kind of role as a judge after the judge Nathaniel Saltonstall resigned. He resigned in protest actually after the execution of accused witch Bridget Bishop. Bridget Bishop was the first victim of the trials, and apparently he was so upset about it he had to step down, which led Corwin to kind of have to step in and take over. Jonathan Corwin would serve as a judge in Salem. During his time, 18 people were convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to death. A total of 30 people were found guilty of witchcraft. Only about 19 of them, though, were actually sentenced to hanging, with one man actually being pressed to death with a stone after refusing to plead. That's actually a really interesting story that I think can go into another time. Once again, doesn't super relate to Corwin, but some interesting things to know. Another kind of fact about the Salem witch trials is that over 200 people were accused of witchcraft, and those who were arrested were forced to await trial in prison. We know from records that several people actually died while waiting to prison just due to poor and inhumane conditions. Some of the conservative numbers estimate that a total of 5 people died in prison while waiting trial. You could, of course, get out of, if you were accused, pretty much your only options were you could plead innocent and like reject the claims, and then you'd be forced to then be put through like different trials, which would probably kill you, or you'd be hanged. If you pleaded guilty, though, there was a chance that you would not be sentenced to death and that you could actually just go to prison and serve your time. If you had other people you could offer up, maybe the people who seduced you to witchcraft, then you could get out of, once again, a death penalty. However, you would then like risk losing like all your property, ruining your family name, so not really a great situation whether you plead guilty or innocent. Jonathan Corwin's actually own mother-in-law would later be accused of witchcraft. She would confess to the crimes, probably in hopes of getting like a lighter sentence, maybe trying to escape, the death penalty. She spent several years in prison due to her conviction. Later in life, Corwin would actually then go on to be elected to the Superior Court of Massachusetts. His house, the Jonathan Corwin house, would remain in the Corwin family up until about the mid 19th century, so about mid 1800s. And from there on, the house just kind of, went through different names and people owned it. The home is allegedly haunted and has been, different ghost investigators have gone there. I've been on a few different tours around the house and the exterior mostly. They always love to bring that up. In 1944, the house was actually set to be demolished by the town of Salem in order to widen the town's streets. If you go to Salem now, they do have very modern roads, which is kind of strange because there are a lot of historical buildings. And this home was actually kind of like in the middle of where they wanted to widen a road. The locals, however, band together and actually were able to stop the demolish by raising over $42,000, which was the money that was required to move the house 35 feet back, so that way it could move away from the road and still exist. There's like this unconfirmed urban legend about the house when it was moved. I haven't been able to find any like reliable sources talking about this. I've been on tours where they mentioned this before. And then when I was looking, I found Salem's Black Cat tours on their website. They talked about this. So I'm not saying this is a true story, but it is a story that is a little legend that is very profound and very well known in Salem. And that's when they were moving the home under the hearth of the house. They found the skeletal remains of a human. And many people were wondering, was it a slave? Was it a witch? What could this be? According to Salem's Black Cat tours on their website, they claim that the bones were actually determined to be animal bones, and they connected it to this superstition in the 1620s, where it's really common to actually bury animal bones and remains under your hearth, and it was supposed to kind of be like this superstitious belief that would bring about bountiful food and nutrition for the household. So like I said, I haven't been able to find any definitive proof that these bones existed, but if they did, it was probably, less spooky, less scary, and more, a good luck charm, if you will. When the home was bought and moved, it was restored to its former glory and was converted into a museum. They hired 2 architects to oversee the renovation so that they could make the house as close as possible to how it would have looked in the 1690s. One thing they really did is they went around and they collected a lot of old furnishing, furniture, artifacts, whatever that still existed from that period that was just like in home museums or smaller museums around Salem, and were able to buy them and put them together to help create this home to look more like a 17th century home. One of the things included in that is actually a puppet doll, which allegedly belonged to Bridget Bishop. If you don't know, a puppet doll is a doll that is allegedly used in witchcraft. As of right now, you can actually go on tours inside of the house, and they'll take you around, walk you around. A lot of it's kind of like a living exhibit where they show you like where a bed would have probably been and how the kitchen would have been probably set up. Once again, a lot of this is just kind of what people are assuming. However, can't know for sure. Another thing that makes this house really cool is a lot of the tours in Salem, including the Black Cat tours and some other ones. They actually will take you on the exterior of the building, and we'll once again kind of talk about Jonathan Corwin and his connection to the witch trials. They'll also talk about there's a lot of urban legends surrounding this household. One says that in the basement George, who was the son of Jonathan, would like torture witches down there. There's been no evidence to suggest that Jonathan would have brought people to his house who were convicted of crimes, specifically people who were convicted of witchcraft, which was seen as a very, kind of terrible crime. It's a very bad crime to be accused of, especially if Jonathan was if he was a man who actually believed in the supernatural. People kind of often disregard this myth as being like, or this urban legend is just being very silly. It's like, bringing something dangerous into your household for no good reason. So when recreating this house, I knew I couldn't quite go off the floor plan exactly because, one, there's really no official floor plan online, and I've only been inside once or twice, as well as I also knew I would need to make it fit a spellcaster. So that meant there's just going to be needs and things that I'd have to change. Like I'd have to put in that big cauldron. I'd have to find space for activities. I will say, as a playable home in The Sims, I didn't add a computer and I didn't add a TV. Those are definitely things you can add if you feel as though your Sims need that. I just know for me, I knew which Sim was going to live here, and they're definitely more less of like technologically advanced Sims, so I was like, it's fine. One thing I did kind of struggle with too is whether or not I should do is when creating the bathroom, because once again, when this house was created, there wouldn't have been indoor plumbing. It would have been created in a time when you had outhouses, so there was that to consider. So I was definitely, well, I'm gonna put a bathroom in because I'm not building an outhouse, as silly as that may seem. I did want to have this house to be off the grid, but I really wanted to use the chandeliers that we got with Cottage Living. Let's drop the name there. And those aren't off the grid. And I was like, okay, well, I could do off the grid and then maybe add like solar panels. I was like, I don't really want to do that either. So, like I said, decisions were made. Like I said, I also wanted to fit the big cauldron and that big stone we got with like the kind of stone rug with like kind of like the witch runes, because I thought that would be fun. And I think overall, I was really trying to go for a mix of kind of like a witchy and kind of like historical feel. Because, for example, and with that also, I had to take liberties. We don't have any furniture in the game that feels 17th century New England. We do have some older furniture that you could definitely get away with, maybe like 17th century Baroque palace, but don't think you could get away with like 17th century New England like home, just because the resources they had in the United States in the 17th century, it's a lot lower than what they had in Europe. So there's definitely like that to consider when playing in this house. It's not going to be the most accurate to things in real life. So that's one thing. I was trying not to get too stuck on, like I'm using this Victorian furniture from Vampires. Very not correct, not the right time period. So sorry about that. As well as, I'm putting this big grand piano. They wouldn't have had that, but I thought it would, once you give your Sims something to do while also feeling very kind of fun. So this is kind of my goal in going into this, was I wanted the outside to be as accurate to the kind of building as possible, as well as also having fun on the inside and not being too too stuck on making it historically accurate. When I try to recreate builds, my goal is to be, as accurate as possible, but also have fun with it. So yeah, I think I did good there. It is a 2-bedroom. Like I said, if you want to convert, you could probably convert the second room to an office if you really wanted that. or you could keep it as a 2-bedroom. You could also even probably find a way to cut up the floor plan a little bit better, because that is something in older, especially 17th kind of century homes. It was very common not to have too many bedrooms, just because generally lots of family members would share certain bedrooms. So, but I was like, in The Sims, that also doesn't really work. You can do it, but your Sims aren't happy getting walked in on changing and woohooing, and so it was definitely a decision. I also, yeah, as you see here, I added the seance table from Paranormal Stuff, just because I wanted to give you, once again, just more spooky, witchy things to do. And even though, yeah, I know it's called the Salem Witch House, doesn't actually have any connections with any specific people accused of witchcraft, so it's kind of not a misnomer, but it's a little, it implies something that it's not. And I think for me, it was very important for this to, to be both spooky, and accurate. It's Halloween. We want to have fun. And I think especially when doing something inspired by something in Salem, their kind of economy is so based on the spooky and the supernatural. They really play into that kind of supernatural aesthetic, which is really interesting, because if you go to somewhere like New Orleans, they actually, in their tours, will talk about like the historical accuracies of like voodoo, and talk about like actually how people who practice voodoo view it, and talk about the difference between voodoo and hoodoo. You don't really get that here in Salem. You get very kind of like, not sensationalist, but like you really get people who are really into the occult. Like a lot of the stores there are very witchy. Anyways, we're getting close to the end of the voiceover. Just to say, you can download this on the gallery. It's available there. My username is Jaymehorne, Jaymehorne, one word. I have a bunch of other fun builds there. I think this is fun for anyone who wants, some fun New England kind of gameplay. I'm putting this in my own save file in the world of Glimmerbrook. However, you can definitely put this in, if you want to go for more kind of an accurate feel, you can definitely put this in a somewhere like Brindleton Bay, which is the New England inspired world. Anyways, like I said, I had a lot of fun building this. I love going to Salem. Salem's like my favorite place, especially not just in the fall. Just I love going to Salem. I live very close by, so I go there quite a lot. I am one of those people who buy all the dumb witchy things. So for me, this was a super fun build. I'm super proud with how it came out, and feel free to download it. And as I say, you can always feel free to edit these as you want. If you want to change the wallpaper, if you want to change some of the furniture, if you want to try to go more historically accurate, while I was trying to go for like a blend of witchy and history, go for it. Anyways, let me also know down below what you think of this build. Let me know if there's any other kind of historical builds you think you would like me to attempt, and let me know what other kind of spooky builds you're into. I'm gonna try to get up at least one other video this week. It might be a tour video of a different build I did, so keep in your eyes out for that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.